Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Mighty Modern. I'm Corbin Hosler, and this is, as I named it, Obosh Lukkakul. Yeah, I decided to get creative with the name because this is a fun one. So, as you might have guessed, it is an Obosh deck. Obosh is one of the more enjoyable companions. Your deck can only contain cards with odd CMCs and land cards if you want this to be your companion. It's a 3/5 for 5. Of course, 3 for the companion cost to put it into your hand. If a source you control with an odd CMC would deal damage to a permanent or player, deals double. So that's a fun one. Okay, that explains the first part. What is a Lukkakul? Well, Emrakul, the Aeons turn. You might have heard of this one. It tends to annihilate people, frankly. Yeah, they sacrifice 6 permanents and scoop thereafter, pretty much. So this card's fun. But how are we going to put it in play in this deck? Well, enter Lukka Coppercoat Outcast. It's got a lot of words on it. It's a 5-mana planeswalker, but the relevant one is this. -2, exile a creature you control, reveal the cards from the top of your library. 2, you reveal one with higher CMC, put it into play. So, as you might notice from this otherwise Ponza-looking deck here, that's something that we're going to build around. So, the creatures in this deck come into 2 categories. There's the 1-mana ones and the 3-mana ones. 1 mana is easy. It's Arbor Elf, Birds of Paradise. That's it. We want to ramp. We want to play 3 mana cards here on turn 2. Such as, well, Bonecrusher Giant gives us a 2 mana spell, but is also a 3 cost for the purposes of Obosh. Magus of the Moon, because nothing better than following up your land destruction in the form of, where is it at down here? Pillage, also hit artifacts, with Magus of the Moon. Good old-fashioned turn everything you have into mountains. Then some of these newer additions to Ponza here, Klothys. It's a huge one. Not only does it empty people's graveyards, it also drains them. It also ramps you. It does all kinds of stuff. What else for a little bit more ramp? And Seasoned Pyromancer really ties these decks together. It gives you a discard outlet late when you draw mana dorks you don't want or something like that. It allows you to pitch an Emrakul if you've drawn it early. And hey, you can make some tokens with it. It really puts in work. So it's pretty straightforward. Throw in Lightning Bolt, Utopia Sprawl, Arbor Elf engine. Call it a deck. It is Lukkakul. And the fact that our sideboard gets to run Obosh as a companion is pretty wild in and of itself. So our deck is attacking on a lot of different angles here. And I'm excited to see it in action. So same restriction applies to our sideboard. Blood Moon and Reclamation Sage at 3 CMC. Then at the 1, you got your Pithing Needles, your Soul Guide Lanterns where you want them. The appropriate matchups. Veil of Summer for the blue decks, or I guess a black deck. And the Chandra's Defeat if you really want to kill other red planeswalkers, other people's Chandras, most likely, something like that. So everybody, that's it. Obosh Lukkakul here on Mighty Modern. I'm Corbin Hosler, as always, with Cool Stuff Inc. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. Welcome to 2021. I am excited to play this deck this week with all of you. So let's jump right into the games. All right, here we go. Obosh is our companion. Looks like we are on the play here. And, well, I guess this is a keep. There's no Arbor Elf to go with the Utopia Sprawl, but there is a Utopia Sprawl to give us red mana. There is a Bonecrusher Giant and Pillage for removal options. And there's a Lukka to give us a game plan. So I don't think there's any way to mulligan this one. Although I'm certainly not an expert with the deck, so I guess we'll find out as we go here. But I think this is a keep. Although I do have to note, we don't have the mana to cast Pillage right now, right? That takes a double red, and we only have a single red with this Utopia Sprawl. And it turns out I might want to actually blow up that Ether Vial with it. There's the Arbor Elf, though. Okay. That's not so bad, because, I mean, we don't know what our opponent's going to do on 2 mana here. But now we have the Bonecrusher Giant up to go for anything. I can actually play the Pillage next turn, or get this. Actually, well, I'm sorry. Let me work backwards a little bit here. We have 5 mana now if we untap with the Arbor Elf for the Lukka, including the 2 red. If we can get the Bonecrusher Giant just into play as a 3-drop, we can then Lukka it into an Emrakul. And it looks like our opponent is going for an Undead Augur here. Going to go ahead and stomp this thing out. This is absolutely perfect for us. We wanted a target for the stomp anyway because we want to cast the Bonecrusher Giant. This is perfectly mana efficient. And it even gets a value creature out of the way for him, right? This is whenever it or another zombie they control dies, draw a card, lose a life. That's a powerful one. But this is working out just honestly perfectly according to plan here. I guess if we don't draw a red source, I'm going to be a little bit wasteful, but you know, there's something to do with it, actually. Feel like this is great, too. Pillaging the Ether Vial should really slow him down. And then we can go for the Bonecrusher. I could have done it that turn, and I thought about it, but I feel like getting the slowing them down here by getting this Ether Vial, especially when we have this Birds of Paradise to follow it up with, is probably going to pay off in the long run here. I mean, also for what it's worth, we have access to, right now, 6 mana. We're not that far off depending on how these things go. I mean, heck, we could end up doing both of these in the same turn, which is really silly if you think about it. In the meantime, though, I don't hate casting Bonecrusher Giant next turn and Lightning Bolting away the Crypt Breaker. That way, in theory, we just keep our opponent from really getting any kind of board that could go around an Emrakul or prevent us from really getting there. Because you can see how this can kind of get going, especially if an Ether Vial was involved. This looks like a fun deck, by the way. Might have to dust off the zombies myself. Undead Augur is a cool one. Diagraph Captains, classic. This was standard playable back in its time. Really neat. Fortunately for us, though, they've tapped out. Oh, well, I guess that doesn't do too much, does it? It's a nice thought, though. All right, let's cast a Bonecrusher. I could Magus here, but I think I'd rather bolt the Diagraph Captain. This is great. I mean, we're interacting with our opponent while setting up our engine. This is what this deck is all about, I think. You know, we've played now 3 interactive spells while at the same time setting up to put an Emrakul into play. That is pretty powerful no matter how you look at it. And I think it's probably Thoughtseize or bust time for them. I don't see how they're coming up with enough damage to kill us right now. We've done a good enough job covering their board. Gravecrawler coming down here doesn't worry me all that much. I mean, I guess it's a nice one to sacrifice to an Emrakul, but probably not going to be enough right in this moment. So let's see, though. There is more coming down the pipe. It's a Plague Belcher. You can put 2 counters. Look at that! You get to put the minus counters on your Gravecrawler, which you can just recast. The Plague Belcher is itself a zombie, and it's another whenever another zombie you control dies trigger. This is actually a neat deck. I'm all in on this. This sounds fun. Let's got to do this next in a couple weeks, I guess. Punty Pioneer next week. All right, there's another Pillage, but you know what? That's not what I'm looking for right now. It's time for Lukka. Not going to mess around and let my opponent trade or anything like that. Not that I think they would, but let's throw those dice, see what happens. Spin the wheel. What could it be? Oh, it's an Emrakul. I'll pass the turn to you. They have exactly 6 permanents in play right now. They do have enough life to take a hit. Now, keep in mind, everyone talks about, you know, Lukka is just, it's a polymorph planeswalker, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's what we did. We polymorphed out an Emrakul, and I'll tell you what, it did feel good. But it also has other abilities. Exile the top 3 creature cards can be cast this way from exile if you control a Lukka planeswalker. And then it's got an ult, which can burn your opponents out. So there you go. It turns out the Emrakul took it down. What do we want against black zombies here? Well, Veil of Summer. At least cycles. Soul Guide Lantern would get the... I'm just thinking about the cards that don't do pretty much anything here. And I think Magus of the Moon kind of falls into that boat. I mean, they are blue-black, but between... I mean, we saw a number of basic swamps there, but also the Ether Vials. I don't want to lean super heavily on Magus here. Frankly, the rest of this deck looks pretty good. The Wood Elves are, I think, a really interesting one, but it makes sense, right? You go from 3 to 5. You know, that's the idea. Arbor Elf turn 1, Wood Elves turn 2. Lukka turn 3. Trying to make sure I have this right. If it works like that, if you go birds into Wood Elves, on turn 3, you'll have 5 mana and you can turn the Wood Elves into an Emrakul. Pretty powerful. As my opponent said in chat, well then. Yeah, that's exactly how it feels when this deck goes off like that. And it feels like a matchup where they probably can't interact much with that. So I'm happy to just kind of go in on it, you know? Remove some pillages here. I really wish our sideboard had in it, and it doesn't, and I wish it did, but Anger of the Gods. Might even go put that in before the next match, because I'm missing that. That's a 3-mana sideboard card we could have, and boy, would that be a good one right now against the Zombies deck. But you know what? The main deck plan worked out okay, too, and this is a keep as well. Klothys will hopefully do some work, although without a lot of removal, you know, the exiling may not even be able to really get off the ground, but I think we definitely have to keep this. And we'll see what we draw. Yep, Gravecrawler it is. All right, there's a Seasoned Pyromancer. That is, I think, a pretty good draw here, Pyromancer, because I think that this is a very important one just throughout the whole. Not only is it going to allow us to pitch cards we maybe don't want, it's a 2/2 that can block something, but the tokens that it can make later when it comes into play, and then when you exile it later, really gives us a lot of great blockers for Gravecrawler, so that it can't just, you know, peck away at our life total for 4 turns, and all of a sudden we get burned out by all the other zombies. In the meantime, though, it is going to do some attacking. Here it comes. But I can actually use the Klothys. Can I exile my own graveyard? Wow, this card's so good. We can even exile our own Wooded Foothills if we want to ramp next turn, which would give us, what is the way that works? 5 mana, right? So we'd have 5 mana to play, what, a Birds and a Pyromancer. It actually doesn't change all that much if you think about it. I wonder if I just want to play a Pyromancer this turn. Kind of think that's the case. You could also pillage one of their lands. I don't think I like that, though. I think I like doing this. Probably pitching the other birds. And probably the pillage, too, right? Yeah. I think this is better. And keep in mind, it does say, for each non-land card discarded this way, create a 1/1. So if we wanted these tokens, we needed to loot. So this is actually a great loot. Not only does it fill our graveyard with stuff for the Klothys, it actually looted us into some nice cards. So Soul Guide Lantern will, maybe not super important given the Klothys, but it can cycle. We have another Pyromancer discard stuff, and here's a nice piece of ramp. So this is, I think, a pretty good board state for us, all things considered. Now, the Augur does, they do get to draw cards this way. And frankly, I actually think I might take the 2. It's only 2. And at this stage of the game, I don't think I want to let him have the card. Oh, no. Okay. Well, that's what the Soul Guide Lantern is for, because this is a combo right here. Carrion Feeder, sacking the Gravecrawler to draw a card off the Undead Augur, growing the Carrion Feeder, but then they can also just replay the Gravecrawler. So that is pay 1 mana, put a counter on your Carrion Feeder, lose a life, draw a card. That's powerful. So Soul Guide Lantern definitely going to come in handy here. Wow, I'm glad that we boarded those in and we didn't just rely on Klothys, because hitting the Gravecrawler at sorcery speed like the Klothys does, actually not good enough. There's an Emrakul. All right, thinking this through, if we go Utopia Sprawl on the forest, naming red, I could then play the Pyromancer, I could loot, then I could play Soul Guide Lantern. Or I could go, yeah. I'd have to go red. Let's give that a shot. I need to get these things. I need to get some of the ramp into play here, and I also, obviously now I need to pitch the Emrakul as well. So. Oh no, we didn't hit another land. All right, our graveyard goes away, but we need to get the Emrakul out of here. So we have plenty of blockers now for the Carrion Feeder. They are going to get a combo with a Gravecrawler again because we didn't hit a land there. So that's a bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. Obviously, we would have preferred to have just hit an untapped land, which is, I think, all of them, had the Soul Guide Lantern up, and been in a much more advantageous position here. You know, maybe I'm not even going to call it greedy per se on my part, because it's not like them drawing into more Carrion Feeders or Gravecrawlers is the end of the world here. So this is a game that I probably comes down to Emrakul. I think just trying to dig to Emrakul is a perfectly reasonable strategy, especially given that we can make the game go long with these tokens. Well, that's fine for blocking Carrion Feeder, but long game also plays in to all these zombies they have that trigger when other zombies die. So both of us are looking for late game engines right now, and that's why I feel like, you know, trying to set up Klothys or Soul Guide here, or it's really just Klothys, right? Because we wanted to hit a land for the Soul Guide Lantern. I think it was okay to try to greed there, and I think it's okay to prioritize digging towards our own end game. Also, by the way, the Undead Augur is not optional, so there may be an upper limit to how much life they want to lose to their own cards here, but we'll see. There's a Plague Belcher. Oh wow, look at this. If they don't have another land, I actually get to just pick off the Gravecrawler with the Soul Guide Lantern when it ETBs, which is not bad. All right, lots of options. No lands here. This will come into play untapped, so this should work out well enough. Throw out another blocker. Just digging for that Lukka, right? Anything that continues the game, keeps our life total at a mostly healthy spot, and digs us towards Lukka is good right now. In this case, it just pulls a land out, but we're working on that casting Emrakul grind. Okay. Here's the thing, though. And maybe I don't even play that birds. I'm not sure, but we'll see. I can always cycle the Soul Guide Lantern. We should have blocks. I can easily put enough in front of the Plague Belcher to trade with it. Our opponent has a bunch of cards. They'll have a bunch of triggers, but between Klothys and Seasoned Pyromancer, we're good to play the next 3 to 4 turns of this game as long as it just doesn't get sort of absolutely out of control over there. And Carrion Feeders don't do it. It's recursive engines, things that trigger when zombies die outside of the Undead Augur. Those are the cards we worry about here. Carrion Feeders, not so much. And they're doing that just to cycle, which, is, to be fair, is pretty good. It turns not just Gravecrawlers, the machine gun, but Carrion Feeder itself, when this setup is in play, it's still pay 1 black, put a counter on your other creature, lose a life, draw a card. So it is powerful no matter what. That said, Klothys will also go to work kind of burning them out if they can't break through a board stall, right? If they don't have Trample or some of those late game engines, you know, we talked about, Klothys will just deal enough damage. Here we go. Here comes a big hit. Let's go ahead and put... didn't even do this like this. This maintains maximum number of blockers here. And I think we have Klothys plus Pyromancer now on this turn. And we can make tokens for days. I don't know if that's quite good enough, but wow, my opponent sitting themselves down to 9 here to play a follow-up. Is it another Plague Belcher? That's a good one. Geralf's Messenger making us lose 2. That's a great one, actually. Now I can sack the Soul Guide Lantern when it hits the graveyard to prevent the Undying. Alright, so what's that do here? That sounds like a card I want to pitch to Pyromancer is what that is, I think. Oh, no. You have to discard 2. No! I actually just completely played this wrong, but that's okay. I should have played it first. Oh, wow. Just fully punished too, huh? That's alright. The ideal way to do that is to play the other one first. Then when you discard 2, draw 2, I would only actually be discarding 1. Now, is it possible that our opponent does enough pain to themselves here that we just swarm them with tokens and 1/1s and win? Not impossible. Unlikely, not impossible. That Klothys punt belonged on Punting Pioneer, though, not Mining Modern, I have to say. My apologies. We might lose this game because of it. Alright, let's make some blocks here. Alright. We should be able to hit now the Messenger with the Soul Guide Lantern. Prevent this thing from coming back. And then they go down to 7. Alright, let's see what their follow-up is here. Another one, okay. As it stands right now, though, it looks like I get to kind of poke in for some damage. Let's see what their next creature is. We're in a weird little race here, but it's not impossible for us to pull it out. Alright, let's see what we hit on the draw step. A Magus of the Moon, huh? Not the best. Probably not the worst, but not the best. Alright, I'm going to get frisky with our creatures here. I think we have to try to make the Undead Augur work against them somehow. Which, again, is unlikely, but we're going to give it the good old college try. Who knows? With enough Seasoned Pyromancer tokens, anything's possible. Unfortunately, our life total is pretty low already. But it looks like we're going to get him down to 4. Okay, they're going to cast something. No, just kidding. What's the play? Oh, wow. It's a swift end on our Wood Elves. That puts them down to 5. They go to 3? Okay. And now I guess we get to slightly tax their we get to slightly tax their black mana by playing the Magus of the Moon. It's cool the Murderous Rider is actually a zombie as well. They're down to 3. This is not... we could just draw a Lightning Bolt, right? Like, we actually have outs to this crazy board state, and we limited their black mana on top of it. They're going for a Messenger. Does that kill me? It puts me to 5. I think they only have me to 1. I don't think that I'm dead here. And then do I have the tokens to swing in? They can sacrifice both messengers, leaving us both at 1 life, but then I think my tokens get there. Okay. Let's see what this looks like. Weird game. I think the line is to double chump. Because then I have lethal. And they only have mountains. Right? Unless I'm missing something here. This works? I think this works. Because what happens is the messenger, if it blocks an elemental, they take lethal. If it blocks the Magus of the Moon to go to 1, the messenger goes to their graveyard and they die to their own augur trigger. They can sacrifice the augur to the feeder. Okay. Not if they let it go like that. I guess they could have sacrificed... No, because then the augur triggers on itself. They just didn't have it. The zombies could not keep up. Yeah, that doesn't even work. We actually won this crazy race after we accidentally discarded Klothys. Putting Modern, here we go, everybody. That was a crazy match. Fun one, though. That zombies deck looks sweet. I'm interested to get something like that to try in the future. All right, on to the next one, I guess. All right, looks like we get to be on the play here in this one. And, well, I don't much like seeing the Emrakul here, but I do like the turn 2 Magus of the Moon on the play. I think I'm going to keep it. Look, we can figure out a way later to get rid of this Emrakul, right? We've got plenty of Seasoned Pyromancers. That'll do the job. I don't think you can turn down a turn 2 Magus of the Moon. It just seems very powerful. Especially, it looks like our opponent is going down to 6. Pretty good in and of itself. So, start things off here by fetching for a basic forest. Very important. And then throwing this Utopia Sprawl on it. I guess naming red. Next one can name green. All right, opponent says they're a big fan. Well, you get to be on the series. Welcome to Mighty Modern. Opponent who is playing elementals. Remember a couple weeks ago we played against this deck, and I just got absolutely trashed by Risen Reef, among others. Let's hope that things go a little better this time around. I have to say, the Magus of the Moon here is probably going to be pretty good. So we do have that going for us. As a matter of fact, I can even do it like this. I can put this Utopia Sprawl onto this forest. Name, well, green, so that we have double green now. But here comes the Magus of the Moon on turn 2. Welcome to your mountains, friend. We still have to figure out what we're going to do with our hand, because it's going nowhere fast. But our opponent is on mono mountains. That is a 5-color elemental deck over there. We just dropped this Blood Moon on. Yep. Okay. Well, I guess we kill the Harbinger. We just assume our opponent's not going to be able to play Magic at any point. Okay, that was almost a disastrous misclick. I don't know what I was doing there. Why don't we target their creature instead? Alright. Let's cast this Bonecrusher Giant and hope that these two go the distance, because they will at least go the distance pretty quick. It's a 3-turn clock, 6 damage a turn. Our hand is exceptionally bad, but sometimes your opponents just don't get to play Magic when you play Blood Moon. Although, that's a pretty good one. As a matter of fact, not only is that a pretty good one, it brings back the Harbinger, which now gets to go search for something, which is a Smoke Braider, which is also a red card that they can cast, which will then give them colors of mana. So they have already begun to dig themselves out. That's pretty good, though. Not going to lie, that one might have saved the game, because that Smoke Braider's coming down, and it would threaten to make it a game if it were not Bonecrusher Stomp right here. That should be good enough. But that was an absolute game changer right there. If we didn't hit a removal spell right there, they were going to catch up very quickly. But we did it. Who knew Blood Moon would be good against a 5-color deck, right? What do we want here? Don't we need? The Pillages are probably fine. We can go down to a Klothys. I'll cut a Wood Elves too. I think there's probably going to be Ether Vials. I don't strictly remember how that deck works these days, but I think there's Ether Vials involved, which, you know, makes me think about. As a matter of fact, Pithing Needle might just be good. Maybe not, though. All the really broken stuff, like Risen Reef, is a triggered ability. And it is a mana ability on, say, Smoke Braider. So maybe Pithing Needle, it basically is only going to hit the Ether Vials. So we'll run it like it is. We put the Blood Moons in. Let's make them have an Ether Vial. And then if they have one, good for them. But that doesn't mean we lose by any means. And plus, we still have Pillages in our deck. All for Lukka, baby! Not very Lukey today. Let's ship that one. Oh, gosh. I'm on the draw. I have to keep it. It is good. This is a good hand with a land. Very good hand with a land. Obviously, a couple lands, I guess. We have a Lukka here, but very good with the land to get an Ether Vial. That Ether Vial, as a matter of fact. Come on, land. That is another Lukka. All right. Well, if we can do this, if we can find the land on top and we can pillage the Ether Vial on turn 2, well, that's a good start. And then maybe we find a Blood Moon. Okay, well, then again, maybe they got backup Ether Vials, and now our game plan is going to shift to controlling the board because they only have 3 cards in hand. And we have a handful of stuff. Now, we can't play any of that stuff quite yet. But once we can, I'll tell you, we're coming for you. This is one of the risks you run, though, with an Ether Vial deck, right? It's like if you run one Ether Vial, sometimes you get... if you play Ether Vial, sometimes you draw one. And you can get punished by your Ether Vial getting killed. But on the other hand, sometimes you draw 2, and then it's like people can just ignore your Ether Vials, kill your creatures, and you've basically mulliganed twice, right? That's why when you play Merfolk against Jund back in the sort of the classic matchup here, you boarded out your Ether Vials. And you hoped they brought in Ancient Grudges or something, but you boarded them out because that was an attrition matchup, not a tempo matchup. In this case, though, it's a will we ever draw a second land matchup? And the answer thus far is no. If this is an Unsettled Mariner, that's annoying. It's a bluff is what it is. They had nothing. Oh, it's a Thunderkin Awakener. Okay. Well. Okay. I'm scared of Unsettled Mariner. Nothing in the graveyard for them to get back, though, so I don't really care about this. Now, they just have 2 cards in hand right here. I'm going to try to stomp this. If they have an Unsettled Mariner, I actually think it's countered. Okay. It seemed that they did not, and there's our land. So, everything starting to come together just a little bit. I'm going to play Magus of the Moon. I understand it's not sort of insane here, right? They have the double vial, but it does constrict them a little bit here. Seems like maybe they had the, 4 lands and 2 Ether Vial is not what that deck wants. But you start talking about Risen Reef and Thunderkin Awakener, and I don't know, some combination of Omnaths, perhaps, Flamekin Harbinger. It can get going pretty quickly. For instance, I suspect there's now a Risen Reef on top of the deck. We still need lands, but we can use Seasoned Pyromancer if we want. Excuse me. To go to dig here, right? That's probably going to be the play. Is pitch a Lukka and a Pillage and try to find some lands that we can use to then play Lukka next turn and turn, I guess a Magus into an Emrakul. So our opponent did in fact go for the Omnath ridiculousness, although not the most current ridiculous Omnath. And they put this one on top of the deck. They can vial it in next turn. It deals damage to any target. Okay. That's fine. That would get rid of the Magus. Oh, we have another one. I think I still have to do this, though, just because we have to find lands. All right, that's a land. That'll work. I'm going to go ahead and shock this in. Oh, I don't have to. Blood Moon. I don't have to shock it in. Just going to pass here. I don't want to lose my Magus to an Ether Vial. Although I suppose it's a little safer with the Lightning Bolt. But, all right, here we go. I'm going to Bolt the Awakener now while I can. All right, fortunately it worked. Hopefully their last card in hand is not good. We know now that they're going to draw an Omnath, which can answer the Magus, but answering the Magus still leaves you possibly getting, leaving you subject to a Lukka turning Pyromancer into an Emrakul. So we'll see. They have their last card is a Healer of the Glade. You know what? The card is better than it looks. It's a 1/2 for 1, which is, hey, those are successful stats. It's Monastery Swiftspear. You gain 3 life. It's pretty silly when you start looping it, though. And it does do work against the decks you actually want it against. It's not as bad as it looks. However, I got some Maguses of the Moon. So I know that at this point of the game, whether or not you have mountains or not is actually not the most strictly important thing. But you know what? Have some mountains anyway. All right, so Omnath starts to become a problem. I guess now they get to start putting lands on stuff, but that's realistically not that big of a deal for us. So only really a problem if they start drawing extra cards, and that'll be a while. In the meantime, I just want to find lands for Lukka. Let's go. We found lands for Lukka. We did it. We got there. I cannot play this Bonecrusher this turn, but honestly, there's no reason to do anything but pass. This one is, I think, pretty close to ending because they have exactly this turn before Emrakul hits play, right? So they have to find something good here, and then they have to find an answer to Emrakul one way or another. Seems unlikely. All right, Lukka, do your thing. Let's go. Exile this Pyromancer. Guess I won't be able to get the tokens. It's exiled, but that's okay because there's the Emrakul. The Aeons, they've been torn once again. Who could have seen it coming? I'll pass the turn back. You all might have seen, I haven't played it in a long time. Sort of my favorite deck that I've ever, one of my favorite decks I've ever designed, my Emrakul deck, my Summoning Trap deck, as it began back in the day. It's Through the Breach Hideaway type ways to cheap Emrakul into play. So I have to say, pretty fun have it with Lukka here. Now, Lukka would not be very good in that deck. It runs Primeval Titan. Once upon a time was absurd in that deck. Turns out it was absurd in every deck and is now banned. So I managed to dust that one off, though. Playing with this Emrakul here and this Lukka is kind of made me a little nostalgic for it, and it picks up the win right there, taking down another one. All right, well, let's see if we can finish this thing 3-0. All right, looks like we are back on the play again. We get to go first. Let's see what we're looking at. Well, you know what? I think it's a keeper. It's not the best thing ever, but it is, I think, reasonably good. Certainly good enough to keep. We can go hardcore ramp if we want. More like, though, we can just play the Bonecrusher here out early. And, I mean, hey, let's hope that this hand goes somewhere, right? Because it's certainly not going anywhere quite yet. But we'll have all that mana. We can spend it on Obosh, if nothing else, right? As long as I remember. Which is actually the biggest hurdle to companions on Magic Online. Simply remembering that you have them in your deck. On Arena, throws it right up there. I can't miss it. Don't know what it's like to play with companions and paper. Haven't ever actually done it yet. But ooh, we got some Yawgmoth shenanigans going down over there. Okay. Well, I'm gonna go big ramps here because I can. Look at this. We're going Wood Elves. Gonna grab another forest to play another Arbor Elf, and look at that. We have 1 billion mana next turn, and I guess very little to do with that outside of maybe stomp something and put an Obosh in our hand. I suppose making all these Wood Elves and Arbor Elves do double damage is certainly, hey, that's a way to win a game, right? We've won Stranger already. All right, Strangleroot guys, let's go. I think I'm happy to block the Strangleroot Geist here, because I can just Bonecrusher Giant it when it comes back, and that is the more scary of the two undying creatures here. Now, these are not exactly the draws that we wanted, I'll say that. And now I'm gonna have to shock myself. Really? Or I can stomp and get Obosh. Fine. Yeah, I think this is okay. Look, I don't know what our opponents got planned for us, but there's only so much we can do when we draw all the mana dorks and all the land. Now, we knew it was a bit of a risky keep, and this is unfortunately one of those situations where the risk just did not quite work out. Although, for what it's worth, I can still play Obosh next turn. I can't even attack this turn. All right. We'll have access to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana next turn, which is not enough to Obosh plus Bonecrusher, but hopefully we'll draw some other action here. And remember, once we have either Obosh or Bonecrusher in play, then all of a sudden any Lukka off the top becomes an Emrakul. So I don't know how long we'll get to find it as the messenger comes to join the party, but we've got some live draws here. And you know what? Magus of the Moon is actually pretty good. I think it is. Now we get to play the Bonecrusher. And while it is unfortunate that they have the Draw Messenger in play, and frankly that they have access to any non-red mana here, they have that swamp, but cutting them off of green is a big deal. Keep in mind, they played a Strangleroot Geist this game. That's a double green card. That's out the window here, and all of a sudden, don't look now, but we have a team that gets kind of scary once you throw an Obosh into the mix. Especially if they choose to get aggressive here, which they do. I'm happy to take 3. At least based on what we know now is we're setting up okay. They need to really have something, and at least so far anyway, they didn't. So here comes Obosh. Well, there's a couple ways to go about this, I guess. I could just Obosh and swing out. I could Obosh plus Pyromancer. That's probably better. Oh, I can't. I don't have 4 red. Well, that makes it a little simpler, right? I can actually only play 1 of them. Okay. Well, that, I suppose, actually makes it pretty easy, right? We'll just play an Obosh and attack for a lot. And I guess we'll see if that swamp leads to very good things for them. Wow, my opponent said GG. Wow, I can't believe we got there. Okay, onto the sideboard. Against Yawgmoth combo. Blood Moons seem like they're pretty good, I guess. I know that Soul Guide Lantern will be good. I know that Pithing Needle will be good. Wow, it turns out we have a lot of good cards for this one. Pillage seems worse. Klothys seems very good. Wood Elves don't seem great. I'm going to cut a bird. I'll assume that we'll get there. This might be a little drastic on how deep we've gone here. Honestly, the Blood Moons are pretty medium because I think their deck runs Mana Dork, so it might not even be that good. We'll go ahead and cut one moon here. It worked in that game, but I am trying to keep in mind that I believe these green-black decks, these green-black Undying combo decks with Yawgmoth run things like Devoted Druid, perhaps? Mana, Birds of Paradise, maybe? So, I don't want to overload on Blood Moon effects and, you know, overvalue that and draw 3 Blood Moons and they just have a Birds of Paradise and make us look ridiculous. But, as we saw, it can come up pretty clutch. So, what I do know they do is interact with the graveyard quite heavily. So, hopefully, we can use these Soul Guide Lanterns and everything else to keep things from getting out of hand this time around. This deck's been good so far, right? Win or lose this deck is picking up some W's as we go. Handily. Frankly, that game worked out very well. Uh-oh. What are you doing to me, Magic Online? Waiting for server, not where we want to be. Everybody, we're in. I'll tell you what, we're in. That's what happened. And this is a keep. A keep, and definitely, I think, a pretty good one. We'll see if our opponent's able to make it back. If not, hey, consider this some bonus content. We'll make sure to get another match in. But if they come back, we will try to finish this last game. So everybody, thanks for watching. I guess you're either going to see another match after this or we'll hop into the deck tech. So here we go. We'll see. All right. Looks like we're going to be on the draw for this one. But this looks like a pretty reasonable hand to me. Turn to Pillage. I'm in. You know what? Speaking my language. Turn to Pillage, and then we have a Lukka, you know, sometime in the future after that. Our opponent, by the way, looks like they're mulliganing down to 5. So fate may be smiling on us a little bit today. We take those, by the way. Mulling to 5, and I have what I hope is a pretty solid hand here, especially now adding a Bonecrusher Giant to the mix. So we'll name red with this Utopia Sprawl. Or I guess it'll get spell pierced instead. Fair enough, I suppose. What do we think this is then? Hammer time? I mean, what goes Seachrome Coast spell pierce, but also mulligans to 5? Right, it's probably not a blue-white control deck over there. Pure Steel Paladin combo, perhaps? Suppose we'll find out. There's a Stoneforge Mystic. Lightning Bolt target number 1, as I like to call it. Well, maybe we'll crush it instead. All right. Sword of Feast and Famine instead. So, okay, fair enough. I will go ahead and stomp down the Stoneforge. And honestly, I think this is still an okay spot for us, even if our opponent is playing fair blue-white. Oh, they missed a land drop? Well, that is an invitation to pillage if I've ever seen one. Might work, it might not, but if it does, we get their white source. And if it doesn't, big deal. All right, so we've been mana leaked, working our way through the cards in their hand. Now, hopefully the Wood Elves will resolve, get us closer. We start resolving some of these Lukkas, so... These are all good cards, as a matter of fact. I'll go with the Bonecrusher first. If they have a counterspell, it's the one I want to get countered, and if they have a path, then they they take 2 to path me, and I'm fine with that outcome as well. So they did find a 3rd land, however. And they have a very annoying Teferi. Although I have to say, bouncing Bonecrusher Giant with Teferi, not ideal. I'll just say it like that. So, and now since we hit a land there, we can actually play a Wood Elves, go get a forest here. Stomping Ground if I want it. And stomp away this silly Teferi before it causes anyone any more problems. And now look at that. Our opponent has 4 cards in hand, but we are set up to resolve a Lukka and get an Emrakul. So I guess as it turns out, Jace the Mind Sculptor can actually just bounce that Emrakul. So I suppose maybe now we also want a land so that I can Lightning Bolt the Jace. Kind of an old school answer, but Emrakul has protection from flying colored spells, I believe. Not protection from Jace bouncing it. I'm going to double check on that. Yep. Protection from colored spells, not colored permanents. So we need a land here if we want to take the Jace. That actually doesn't get it done. So what does that mean? Well, it still means I think that we Lightning Bolt Jace. Because why wouldn't we? Play the Birds of Paradise and play the Magus, I think. By the way, friend, you now have 3 mountains and 1 island. Have fun. Hopefully Emrakul joins the party now. Alright, the Hardcast Batterskull. It has arrived. You know, that would be pretty good on the board if we weren't prepared to go all the way over the top right now, which we are. Not impossible. It's so less dramatic this way, right? It's just do your thing, all of a sudden you have an Emrakul. Much less dramatic, but hopefully just as effective. Batterskull is quite strong in a fair game, but this is not a fair game, friend. This is a Eldrazi game. Your Aeons, they're being torn as we speak. What's happening? Just feel the madness creeping in from Emrakul. From what I understand, Emrakul sat on the moon and influenced the entire plane of Innistrad. Onto the sideboard, Emrakul is undefeated. All right, blue-white control-ish, I guess. Blood Moons, Veil of Summers, maybe even some Pithing Needles for those Planeswalkers. Kind of seems like the dream. What's bad here? Might be the better question. I feel like Pillage is just kind of good. I feel like hitting a blue-white player's lands is just always the right thing to do. Cut a couple lightning bolts. They're basically only there to kill Teferi and Jace's. Clean up that way. I'm going to cut a Mana Dork. I'm going to cut a Pillage, I guess. And we're going to cut another Mana Dork. I don't really know is the answer. I know if our opponent's playing board wipes, I don't necessarily want a lot of Mana Dorks. Sort of the traditional wisdom. You need more sort of high impact creatures. And you just hope to draw a hand like this. This is a hand of magic cards right here. I'm in. It is not the most powerful thing in the world. It does kind of get hosed to a mana leak. Or what have you here. But if we can resolve a Klothys, that is a massive, massive tool in the arsenal. And you know what? Thanks to that Veil of Summer, not only are we going to be able to resolve Klothys, we might get to do it in just sort of dominating fashion where not only do we end with the Klothys on board, we also get to 2-for-1 our opponent thanks to Veil of Summer. Now, as it turns out, that's not the case. They're ousting our creature, and that's not exactly a very good draw. All right, we have an Arbor Elf up next. I do kind of want it. So we'll just do this. Pass the turn here. So I suppose Teferi would be the most annoying thing here. It could even then bounce a Klothys, which would just really be annoying. So, all right, thankfully that is not what's happening here. And now I should still be able to resolve Klothys thanks to that Utopia Sprawl. with something approaching impunity. Wow, okay, Klothys just resolving. Also pretty good. I'm going to keep the Veil of Summer, I think. Would allow me to stop us. I mean, if they have Teferi, they just play Teferi, though, right? I'm just going to play the Arbor Elf. Okay, well, Celestial Purge on the Klothys is pretty good. The Veil of Summer, I think, would have stopped that. You and permanents you control gain hexproof from blue and black. So, actually, nothing renewed about that. Anyway, playing the Arbor Elf works out. And as it turns out, that might be pretty important because ramping to this Emrakul seems to be the current plan. We can put an Obosh into our hand. Can I cast an Obosh? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I actually could cast Obosh. I don't want to without Veil of Summer up, though. Not when we can cast it next turn with the Veil of Summer. And the reason I mentioned the Emrakul, look, don't look now, but if we were to draw another Arbor Elf, this already makes 3, 6. We already have 9 mana here. Another one would unlock quite a bit more. Instead, they want to tap out to Cryptic Command our forest, huh? Feels like the perfect time to attempt the Veil of Summer and drown that Cryptic in their hand. The fact that it cycled into Lukka, quite the bonus. And that's an annoying one. Wow, bouncing the Arbor Elf, huh? All right. They've got 3 cards in hand. I guess I attempt to resolve a Lukka here, right? Well, I definitely do now. Excuse me, I think Lukka is by far better than Obosh here. We just get a plus that thing. I say this, I always forget about silly Teferi. It turns out the Veil of Summer, not very good when Teferi's in play, no matter how badly I want it to be. All right, another Celestial Purge here. So I guess we exiled 3 cards. It looks like a Veil of Summer and 2 lands. Yeah, that's fine with me. That we will not get to do anything with. Well, it's a little rough, right? Now things are starting to sort of fall apart a little bit. Our opponent's up to 3 cards in hand. They have a Teferi, Time Reveler counting up. I don't have great answers to it, and they have a Batter Skull. Seems bad for the home team. What is this? Gosh, an Amarius Call. Okay. That's a good one, actually. Just getting a lightning bolt and getting this thing out of here forever is just more important than you could know, because gosh, is that card annoying. All right, here's an Obosh. It's not a Lukka, but it is a creature. And now, now our opponent has 2 cards in hand. 1 now. And we have this Veil of Summer up. I mean, heck, we actually have positive blocks against the Germ Token. And there's a Lukka. Give it another try here. The thing is, I actually don't really want to exile the Obosh. To get an Emrakul, but I guess our opponent, their last card is a land or something because it did not answer Lukka, did not answer Obosh, did not answer Emrakul. We took it down 3-0, 4-0 if you count the bonus content, with this deck Lukkakul here in Gruul and Obosh, a Ponza Lukkakul deck. It's pretty neat. I have to say, it's a Mighty Modern deck. I really enjoyed this one. I have a bit of an affinity for Ponza. It is a fun archetype, especially when you start throwing Emrakuls in the mix. So, what would I change about this deck? What would we look at this and talk about? I'm going to be honest. I don't want to over-recommend anything here, but I do look at the Pillages, and I say, what are they doing here? There's nothing wrong with the card. In fact, when you're playing Blood Moon type effects, it's very good, and it is sort of well-rounded, but I can't help but wonder if this deck needs something else to try to win the game. It has incredible setup. It has incredible value cards. Uh, but what it lacks is anything. It's all in on this Lukka plan, which is fine. But the only alternate win condition here is Klothys, and Klothys is much more of a value card than a win condition. I wonder if there isn't something you could do, and I don't know if Pillage is a spot for it. I don't know if you start talking about trimming, I don't know, maybe cut up Birds of Paradise. The Wood Elves, I understand why they're in the deck, but maybe they could become something. I don't know what that something is. Wrenn and 6 kind of fit in a deck like this. I mean, heck, run Tarmogoyf. Probably not exactly Tarmogoyf, but you get the idea. This deck is pretty straightforward in its game plan, and we ran into some matchups where that game plan worked out very well, but it feels like it does have a hard time pivoting. So I don't know. That's a spot I'd look at. The Pillage by itself, absent any Stone Rains or anything like that, feels a little odd, but who knows? With the Magus of the Moons, maybe it's just where you want to be. Either way, I know I had a blast playing this deck here on Mighty Modern. I want to thank all of you so much for watching, for taking the time, misplace and all. I appreciate it so much each and every week. And for that, that's Mighty Modern. I'll see you next week, everybody.